Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi GITTEN Ayin Tes. We are holding right on top at the Mishnah. Now, we all know that just as you can deliver the get directly into the hands of the Isha, v'nasam b'yada, you can also transmit the get to the Isha by way of her property, her chatzar, her gag, courtyard, roof. Says the Mishnah, Haisai Medes al Roish Hagag. So he's standing down in the yard and she's up on the roof. The roof happens to belong to her. The yard is his. V'zarkela, and he tosses the get in her direction. Kivan she'igia la'avir Hagag. Once the get arrives in the airspace, it enters the airspace of her rooftop. That's enough. So even if the wind blows it away and she never gets it, or it gets burnt up, or harezu megoreshes, she is divorced, because she took delivery of the get, although not physically in her hands, but it entered her property, and airspace is part of her property. What about humilamala? He's standing on the roof. Vihimalamata, she's down in the yard. Vizar Kalani tosses it to her. He throws it down. Kivin sheyatzam rishus hagag. Says the Mishnah a chiddush, and the Gemara will have to explain this in great detail. How this works. As soon as the get leaves, it exits the rishus hagag, the airspace of the rooftop. That's enough. It's hers. She's kaina, and therefore, even if something happened to the get, nimchak, it got erased. It rained on it, it got erased. Or nisraf, or suddenly got burnt. It's gone. Harezu mugareshes. The get takes effect, and the Gemara will explain how this works. Now, let's go back to case 1. She's on the roof. He throws it in her direction. Says the Mishnah, Kivan she'egia la'avir hagag mugareshes. Once the get reaches the airspace, the avir, of her rooftop, that's enough. V'halai minter. What do you mean? We learned yesterday that a person's property, a person's chatzar, can be considered an extension of himself, to the fact that it can make an kinyan for him. So something that enters his chatzar, it's as though it reached him personally. But there's one condition: minter, guarded. It has to be a secure place. Well, in this case, it's merely hovering above the roof. There's no enclosure. The Gemara figures at this point there's no railing surrounding the get, so it's just fluttering mid-air and then it disappears. Why is she kaina? There was no shmira. It wasn't contained. Oh, we're speaking about a rooftop that's surrounded with a railing, and the get had already been enclosed by that railing. The get was within the enclosure, although it was still floating, but within the enclosure. That's called mishtameres. Ula bar Menashe, he answers a different teretz. Mishmei da'avimi amar, hacha b'poches mishloisha samach l'gag askinen. Oh, no railing, but the get had already reached a very close point to the surface of that rooftop, within 3 tefachim, which we know is considered lavud, an extension. It's bottle. It's so insignificant the distance. It's considered to have already landed on that rooftop. To kol pachas mishloisha samach legag kegag dami, or there's a girsa kilavud dami. Lavud means like an extension. So we treat it as though it landed on the rooftop, and certainly is considered as though she took delivery of the get. So the question was, fluttering in the air, what is that worth? First answer, within the enclosure. Second answer, so close to the rooftop, it's as though it landed on the roof itself, which is certainly her chatzar. Hu milamala, next case in the Mishnah. So he's up on the roof and she's down in the yard. As soon as the get leaves the roof, it's enough. Same question, v'loi minter. The Gemara figured at this point. Let's assume the rooftop is higher than the wall surrounding the yard. Okay, the yard has a wall surrounding it, but the roof is definitely higher. So the get is taking off, leaving the rooftop, but why should that be enough? It's not within the enclosure of the chatzar. It's not guarded, it's just going to fly away. And that's exactly what happened. Something went wrong with it. It never reached her. Amar Rabbi Shmuel was speaking about a unique configuration. Was speaking that the walls surrounding the yard below are so tall and high that they reach higher than the level of the rooftop. So you have a rooftop, you have a yard below, but the walls of that yard reach higher than the rooftop. So as soon as he throws the get beyond his roof, it is automatically enclosed. It is surrounded by the mechitzes of the yard below, very tall mechitzes. V'chein Amar B'Elazar, Rabbi Yoshe, the same teretz, Kegon shahayu mechitzes atachtonos, oitfois el yonis. V'chein Amar Ula, the same thing Ula said, the name of Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Kegon was speaking shahayu mechitzes atachtonos, oitfois el yonis, and that solves the issue. Now, the entire Mishnah seems to indicate that an object which has arrived in an airspace of the rishus below is considered to have arrived at the domain below, which is interesting. It never physically landed on the land, on the property below. It's still fluttering midair. It's flying through. That's enough. Which is an interesting concept. Amalei Rab Abel Ula. So, Kaman, this idea, this halacha in the Mishnah, that airspace is an extension of the ground below. Rebbe, is that like Shitas Rebbe? The Amar Kaluta, this is in halachas of Shabbos. So, you throw an item from one rishus to another rishus, from a public domain, a rishus harabim to rishus hayachad, a private domain. So even though it never landed, it's just flying through, we consider it as though it landed. Kaluta, if it's enveloped within the airspace, Kemishon Chadamia, it's as though it landed. So that's Shitas Rebbe by Shabbos, which isn't necessarily agreed upon by all Shitas. And our Mishnah seems to be following that idea, that once the get arrived in the airspace, that's enough. Amalei, so he responded, no, Afilu Temer Rabbanan, our Mishnah by get, which reckons with airspace, could be following Shitas Rabbanan, who perhaps disagree, who disagree with Rebbe by Shabbos, because Shabbos is different than get. Ad kan loy pligi Rabbanan olei the Rebbe. The Rabbanan only disagree with Rebbe by Shabbos, Elin Shabbos, because there you have to take the item from one rishus to the other. It has to sort of check in, has to register into the new rishus, and for that you need solid ground. But here by get, the whole point is who's controlling the get. There's no stipulation that the get has to land on the ground, but it has to be within her control. It has to be within her domain. It's a whole different concept. And once it arrives into the avir of her chatzar and it's surrounded by mechitzes, that's sufficient. It's enclosed, it's guarded by her and her property, and that's enough. So all would agree that it works by get. V'chein, Amar Rab Asi, Amar Rab Yechanan. To answer this original question, how do we see the get enveloped? We're speaking that the walls around the yard below come up way higher than the rooftop, in which case, once it leaves the rooftop, it's enclosed within those mechitzos. And next question was, Amalei Rabbi Zera Rabbi Asi Keman Kerebi, are we following Shitas Rebbe only? The Amar Kluta Kamishon Chadamya, that airspace is sufficient. Amalei, he responded, yeah, that's a machlekes by Shabbos, by the melacha of carrying. Amalei Afilu Hem Rabbanon, but our Mishnah could be following even the Rabbanon. Ad kan lepligi Rabbanon the Rebbe Elin Shabbos. Rabbanon only disagree with Rebbe by Shabbos, because they look at the melacha of Hitzah differently than he does. Aval Hacham Mishem Menturiu Valkaminto. Here, by get, it's all a matter of who's controlling it, who has possession, and airspace is enough. So what happens? It enters her airspace, but she never gets it. Nimchak. It got erased mid-air. Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba Ravu Shonu. It only works. It's only a valid get. It's only considered as though she took delivery of the get el shenimchak derech yirida. See, he tossed it out, so it went sort of upwards, and then it started sloping downwards. So the mechika, the erasure, happened on its way down, and Rashi says, that's called nesina. It's already heading into her chatzar. Aval nimchak derech aliyah. But suppose it was still in the upward trajectory when it was erased. So it was enclosed, it was surrounded by her mechitzas, but it was still going up before making its downward turn. Loy, in that case, if something went wrong with the get, it doesn't work. My time on mikar because as soon as he threw it, it wasn't meant to land. It never even took a downward turn towards her property, and therefore it's not considered v'nasam biyada. So Rashi here, about halfway down the it says, "Aval nimchak derech aliyah." But if the mechika took place when it was still going up, aval b'shiyotzam avir gag, it left the rooftop and it's already in the avir chatzar. It doesn't matter. Umechitzas atachtonis oitfeis, and the mechitzas surrounding it, any megureshes doesn't work. Rashi explains. The derech siluka lemikir nesina, because when it's going up, it's sort of leaving him. It's not yet going to her. Interesting. So the angle makes that determination. Ela derech hanachasa ilav l'rishusa. Delivery only begins when it's angling down. Interesting. So at that point we say it's angling down and it's enclosed by her mechitza, by her rishus. That's enough. So even if the get is destroyed before it lands down below, the get takes effect. The next thing that may have happened is nisrav. It was burnt mid-air. Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba Rav Shana. When do we say the get takes effect, despite the fact that it never reached the ground safely? Ela shekodem get l'tleika. The get arrived within the airspace of the chatzar before the fire was lit below, so it had a chance of landing. When it came to the chatzar, it was a viable get. Aval kadmad lekel get. But suppose the fire was burning strong below, and the get never had a chance to make it down safely. Loy. Aval kadmad lekel get. It doesn't work. Why? My time and mikar l'seifa ka'asl, because initially it was never going to make it down below. It was never going to have a safe landing. It couldn't have survived the fall. So even if it entered the avir or chatzar, it's not enough, because you see, the avir airspace serves the ground below. So entering airspace is tantamount to having reached the ground below. What if you never had a chance? There was no possibility of a landing safely below. There was a fire burning at that split second. Already it was burning. So that's not called taking possession of the get. When does it work? If after having arrived within the airspace of the chatzah, then suddenly a fire is ignited below, and ultimately the get falls into the fire, then that's okay. Because there was a moment in time when the get was enveloped by the chatzar and was viable and was identified with the chatzar on the ground below. It could at that point have landed safely. So that there we have a proper kinyan. The chatzar envelops it, acquires it, and she's megureshes. Amar Rav Chisda. You should know that rishuyos chalukos begitten. This is a totally different point. It's his yard, but he's giving her access, allowing her to use, part of his yard for receiving her get. You should know that it's specific. If he allows her part of the chatzar, it doesn't mean he's allowing her part of the rooftop or part of the home. I'm lending you this area, giving you access to here, not to there. So we separate the reshuyas when it comes to gittin. Amalei Rami Bar Chama l'Rava Menalei l'Sabaha. So he asked Rabbi, how does the elder Chacham Rav Chizda know this concept? Maybe he doesn't care. If he lets her use this area, maybe that area is all the same thing. How does he know this concept that we have to be specific? She could only use as per his permission. Menalei l'Sabaha. Amalei Masnisni. It's a clear-cut Mishnah, our Mishnah. We have the first case. She was up on the roof. And he's standing down below, and he throws it to her. Once the get reaches the airspace of the gag, it's okay. Now, whose property? Whose rooftop was this? Whose yard was this? Let's assume that both areas, the rooftop and the yard, belong to the same person. So, if she's the owner, Lamali Avir Hagag. So, why have the get reach the rooftop? Let him just throw it into the chutzner. Meaning, if the chutzner is also hers, then the chutzner is kind for her. Ella begagdi day, v'chutzner day. Oh, next option is both properties, roof and yard, belong to him. Then the question is the other way around. So what if the get gets to the avir of the gag? It's all his property. She can't be kaina. Elapshita, so you must say that we split it. Begag dida, rooftop is hers. Right? So the get which arrives there is considered hers. But the chatzar down below is his, so it has to leave the chatzar and get into the rooftop. So rooftop hers, courtyard his. Okay? Let's see if that works. Ema Seifa. Next part of the Mishnah speaks about a case where hum lamala v'him lamata. He's on the rooftop, she's in the yard. He tosses it to her. What does the Mishnah say? As soon as the get leaves the rooftop and is enveloped within the airspace of the chatzar below, even if the get was damaged, the get takes effect. Remember, we're speaking that rooftop was hers, courtyard was his. But that's not going to work here. And if the rooftop is hers and the chatzar his, why does it work in this case when the get is within the chatzar? That should make it not work. So you must say So this last case must be speaking that it's switched around. Rooftop is his, and has to leave the rooftop and go into chatzah dida, the chatzah which is hers, and that's why she's kaina. So we're switching the circumstance. So the Reisha, part A of the Mishnah is begag dida v'chatzah dida. Her roof, his chatzah. Seifa, the second part is the other way around. Begag dida v'chatzah dida. Roof is hers. Sorry, roof is his and chatzah is hers. Which is a little bit strange. So apparently, we're not going to go with this route. We're going to take a more simple route. Elalav was speaking that everything belongs to him, rooftop and chatzar. The Oshlamakaim, and he's letting her use. He's loaning her, temporarily, giving her use, giving her access. You can use my chatzar, you can use my rooftop. And what happened was that he let her use one of the two, either the rooftop in the first case, or he let her use the chatzar in the second case. Elalav the Oshlamakaim. And the Mishnah is being very specific in terms of where the get has to arrive, because she could only make use, she could only have access to that area which he allowed her. And that's why he has to reach that area specifically. A person loans the place one place. But not two places. Such as the gag and the chat. Whatever I let you use. In the first case, I let you use the gag. The get has to reach the gag. In the second case, the chatzar, the get has to reach the chatzar. So it's a writer of Chizda that we are particular. Amalei, he responded by saying, no, there's no raya from this Mishnah. The area. How can we prove from case A to case B in terms of the circumstance and ownership of the properties? Perhaps you're right. The first case in the Mishnah is speaking that she owns the roof and he owns the chatzar, and the second case is speaking the other way, that he owns the roof and she owns the chatzar. Reisha, the first case is begagdi da, it's her roof, chatzar done his Chatzah the day in his chatzah. Say for the second case is the other way around. Begag the day, his rooftop, v'chatzah the day on her chatzah, and then it's unrelated to our discussion of permission and access. Amar Rava, but you should know like this. Shalosh midos begitten. There are three major differences in terms of the halachos of domains and reshuyos between delivering a get and carrying on Shabbos. Number one, Hadama Rebbe, Kluta Kamishon Chadami. Right, this we learned before. Rebbe's concept that airspace is like the ground below. Uplig Rabban Alei. The Rabbanan disagreed. Hanimi Linin Shabbos. That's only regarding carrying on Shabbos. Aval Hocham Minturiu, Vaminturu. This is the same territory we said before. Gittin, a totally different ball game. It's a matter of guarding, possession, watching, controlling. Airspace within your mechitzas is enough, according to all shittas. Next, V'had Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda tells us a chiddush when it comes to Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah of Shabbos. So you have a place which is enclosed, a Rosh Hashanah, and you have a very tall pole in that place. No'atz kana Rosh Hashanah. He planted a pole within his backyard. U'b'rosh taraskel, with a basket sitting perched on that thing, 1,000 feet in the air. He's standing in the street and he tosses something onto that very, very tall basket sitting on that tall pole. Afilu gavoya me'ami, even if it's 100 amas up in the air, chayev. He has committed a malacha v'yitzol lefi, or hachnas, I should say, because he threw it from the Shisuram into Rosh Hashanah. So even though it's way high, he's chayev. Lefi Rosh Hashanah oila ad l'rukia. Now the chiddush here is that even though there were no mechitzas going that high, mechitzas are, basic minimum mechitzas 10 tefachim high. They created an enclosure. Within that enclosure, everything, and really everything, even the airspace up to the sky, is part of the same domain, but that's only for Shabbos. Hanimi Shabbos. But you can't use the same concept by a get. If a get was tossed up on that very, very tall pole, she's not kind. Because, a little wind can come and just blow it away. There's no shmira, there's no possession, there's no control. That's something unique to get. Number 3, V'adam Rabbi Shmuel. We have a chumrah by Shabbos that doesn't apply to gittin. So we know that we're not meant to transfer. Unless there's an erev, chatzeres, you're not meant to transfer from your next door neighbor's home to your home, even if it's a direct transfer, it doesn't involve the street. Okay? So Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel tells us a chiddush. That applies even to making use of the rooftops. You can't bring from his rooftop to yours. You shouldn't be standing on your rooftop and leaning over and, collecting some rainwater from his rooftop. Just like you understand that down below within the home, these are separate residences which don't allow transfer. Likewise on the rooftop. This is his property, this is mine. Even though it's not a heavily used area, still these are distinct reshuyos, no mixing and matching. That's only for Shabbos. Hanami l'inin Shabbos. Aval l'inin get. But suppose, this husband had 2 homes adjacent, right? With 2 rooftops connected. And he tells his wife, look, you could be makabel your get in this rooftop. And she was makabel on the other rooftop. We don't really care here. Because aval l'inin get mishum k'peidahu. Here it's a matter of determining whether he's particular and cares. And to this extent, this rooftop, that rooftop, these aren't, personal areas, aren't heavily used areas. Like Kapti Inchi, typically people are not particular, and therefore, if you let her use this rooftop, she can gladly use the other one as well. Amar Abai. Shtei chatzeres is an interesting case. Shtei chatzeres zulif nemizu. So you have 2 yards, one within the other. An outer one and an inner one. And the outer one is surrounding the inner one. Let's say it's surrounding from all sides. Owned by different people. Guess who? Him and her. Pnim is shalah. The interior yard she owns. The exterior, the one ringing the interior, is his. The outer one has very tall mechitzas, which are actually taller than the inner ones. So the interior ones are 5 feet high. The ones surrounding the interior ones are 10 feet high. V'zarkala, husband throws her a get. Kiva she'igia la'avir mechitzas achitzayna, harizim gureshes. As soon as the get arrives within 10 feet of the ground, 10 feet of the, ground level of the interior chutzner, that's enough. Even though, let's keep in mind, the chutzner hapnimis, which is hers, only has mechitzas 5 feet high. So technically, the get has not yet been enclosed and enveloped by her mechitzas. They are within the outer mechitzas, right? So you have an outer chutzner which is 10 feet high, inside which you have a smaller chutzner which is only 5 feet high. The walls, right? This belongs to her, that belongs to him, and the get is flying into her chutzner, and it's still 10, 9, 8 feet off the ground, within the outer mechitzas, but not within the inner mechitzas. It works. Harizim megureshes. Why? My time. It's not in her chutzner. Pnimis gufa. Typically, the inner courtyard, the mechitzas hachitzayna commentary is guarded by the outer taller mechitzas as well. That's just the way it's built. So the outer mechitzas, which are taller, are sort of committed. Rashi uses that lashon. Mishibadois heinla. They're committed to her, committed to protecting the inner chutzner as well, and therefore they can affect a kinyan for the inner mechitza, and the get takes effect. This doesn't apply to boxes, to containers. You have shtei kupos zubaseichsu, 2 containers, one inside the other. A larger one that's holding a smaller one inside it, owned by different people, as you guess. Outer one is his, inner one is hers. Panim is shalah, the one inside is hers. V'chitzayna shalah, the one outside is his. V'zarkalani tosses the get to those containers. In this case, afilu higia la'avir pnimis einem megureshes. So even though the get is now within the airspace, we're talking about containers now, not properties, containers that have airspace. The get is within the airspace of the inner container. It doesn't work. She wasn't kaina. Why? My time dalaynach, because it never landed. Question: what about airspace? So Rashi answers the question. Rashi is about 10, 12 lines from the top. Dalaynach. Ve'ein mechitzas kli asuyin la'aviran lishmar. Very different than a backyard, whose mechitzas are there to protect it, to protect the airspace as well, not by a kli. Rashi adds, the ein kli asui elo laniach b'toicha. What's the purpose? What's the function of a kli, of a container, of a basket, of a box? To place utensils within the box, on the surface of the box. You don't have things fluttering around in a box. You put something in a container. That's how it's used. And that's how you're kaina. And it has to be an exercise of function. So airspace by a kli does not work. Asks the Gemara, but if it would land, v'chinach. Okay, so it actually landed on the bottom surface of that container, my hobby. So why does it work? Remember, her container, which is sort of trying to receive the get, is within his container. This is a shaila we discussed the other day as well. We have a kli belonging to a buyer. Can he use that kli to be kaina, something which he's buying from a seller who owns the property in which the kli is sitting? Do we say the kli creates its own domain, or is it sort of bottled to the property around it? Her kli is now sitting inside his kli. That's like Kelev Shalikeach B'Shus Meicha, because he's the one that's sort of giving the get, right? So how can that work? Hachabamaya Skinan was speaking that his container has no bottom. B'Kupa She'en La Shulayim. He just has sort of like a wraparound container without a bottom. In this case, if the get would land inside her container, which is sitting inside his container, it would work, because her container is sitting plainly on the floor. It's surrounded by his container, but it's not sitting on his container. There's no bottom to his container. So theoretically, if the get would actually land into her kupa, it would be a gerushin. Okay, before we proceed, let's quickly recap this sugya. So, just like you can give the get directly to the isha herself, place it in her hands, you can do it to her through her chatzar, through her gag, even through her avir. And everybody agrees that by get you can do that as long as it's protected, it's guarded, she's in control of that avir. And once it reaches the avir, doesn't matter what happened to it, typically even if it gets burnt or, the get had already taken effect. We spoke about the idea that the husband, when he lets her use a certain area, it's that area, not a different area, except by the rooftops. We said, it's not a commonly used area, so he's not so makpid. We had 3 chidushim, 3 distinctions between the halachas of get and halachas of Shabbos. We had 2 chidushim from Abaye regarding, double chatzeros or double containers. Continues the Mishnah, Beishami Emrim Poiter Adamas Ishta Beget Yoshin. You can use an old get. What does that mean? We'll see in a minute. So you can use that to divorce. Ubesil Eisrim, they don't allow it. Be'ezeu Get Yoshin, what is a Get Yoshin? Kol she'en siyachad ima ma'acha shekosvilo. He wrote the get. And then they went into seclusion. There was a yichud. Beis don't allow us to use the get. Now what's the machlekes about? But Ma'ika Mifleki explains the Gemara, Beishami Sabri, Loy Amrinan Gzera. We don't apply a Gzera, we're not concerned, Shamayimr, lest people will say, Gita Kaidim Lubna, the get preceded her child. We'll explain this in a minute. Beisila Sabri, they are concerned about, people saying, Amrinan, we do apply the Gzera, Shamayimr, Gita Kaidim Lubna. Explains Rashi. I'm around halfway down the Amid here. Gita Kaidim Lubna. Shama Yisha Saget. So he wrote the get today, and he was trying to delay it. A couple of years later, he finally gave the get. But they were living together as married all this time. Maybe she will have born children from him within this time frame, between the writing of the get and delivering the get. Then, ultimately, he'll divorce her with this get, which is predated. And down the road, they'll forget about what happened and that the get was written before and just given later. They won't realize that the children were born legitimately, properly before the get was actually issued. They'll forget that. And what are they going to notice? Wow, look at this get. Yiruz mana get, which precedes the birth of this child. And they'll think that this kid was born out of marriage. They'll think that the get was actually delivered at that point, at early date. Right? It's a negative, create a negative impression of this child. It's a pagam. They'll label the child as a pogam, as deficient, born out of marriage. So that's Beis Hillel's issue, and therefore we don't use a get which was followed by a yichud between the same husband as wife. Now, since it's only a concern and a gzera, it's not technically possible, so we allow for some, flexibility. Amar Shmuel, says the Gemara, but if she remarried based on this get, we don't compel her to leave her new husband. We just leave it put. We don't rock the boat. The fact is, it's technically kosher. There's another version of this halacha. Amar Shmuel, if she actually got divorced using this stale get and the husband disappears, you don't have to wait around for him to come back. She can go remarry lechatchila. Now, we know that within a get, we have many elements, many identifying elements, many details. His name, her name, location, date. Now, they would date it based on the year of the current king. The Gemara will explain for us that it was in order to engender Shalei Malchus, to show that we respect the Gentile authorities. So that's the way you write the get. Suppose he improvised. Kosav l'shum malchus she'ena higenes. So he's sitting in a certain location, and instead of writing the local king, it's been 6 years for King James, he decides to date it based on when the Malchus Eino Hegenes, which is another term for Rome, unsubstantiated Malchus, not a proper royalty. We'll see in the Gemara why we call it as such. So that's how he dates it. Kosav l'shel Malchus Eino Hegenes. Another example of an improperly written get is l'shel Malchus Madai, l'shel Malchus Yavan. He's sitting in England and he writes based on the Madai kingdom or Greek kingdom. Binyan Abayis, L'chorban Abayis, such and such years since the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, or so many years since the destruction of the Mikdash. So here he messed up the Malchus. Same thing if he messed up the location. Hayab Mizrach, he's sitting in the east, because of B'marav, and he records Marav in the get. Or B'marav, he's sitting in the west, because of Mizrach, and he writes, all this get's being written in the east. The get is worthless. Teitzim Mizeh. Even if she remarried based on this get, she must leave her new husband, Shimon, and leave the first husband, Reuben, as well. And we apply all kinds of penalties because it was an improperly written get. Utzricha get mizeh. She needs to get a get from Shimon and from Reuben. Well, from Reuben, she certainly needs a real get because she's still his wife, and she needs a get from Shimon as well. So that people may think that she was really divorced from Reuven and she married Shimon, so she needs a get from Shimon as well to cover all concerns, all chashashos. And she's very heavily penalized. Like ksuba, she doesn't get a ksuba payment from anybody. But like peiros, she's not entitled to the halacha, the peiros arrangement. The husband gets the fruit, the produce from her properties, and in exchange he has to redeem her if she is taken captive. She's not entitled to that privilege. V'lei mezainas, nor support, v'lei belois. If her items got worn out, the stuff that she brought into the marriage and it was worn out, she doesn't get it back. She has no claims on any husband, not a Reuben, not a Shimon. In fact, if she collected from any of these husbands, she has to return it. Any child born from Reuben or Shimon is a mamzer. Now let's break this down. A mamzer minat Torah is only the child born from Shimon because she's technically married to Reuben. When we call the child born from Reuben, if she goes back to him, a mamzer, that's only mamzer midrabanan. We treat it as a mamzer. Nor can Reuven or Shimon metaman. If they're kohanim, they can't tend to her burial. They're not considered husbands, not with respect to collecting anything that she finds, taking her earnings, annulling her vows. If she was a regular woman from a Yisrael family, she can no longer marry a kohen down the road because she's considered like a zoino, straight from her husband, because she remarried based on a improperly written, disqualified get. Bas Levi min Maser. If she was from a Levi family, she can't have Maser Rishon. Again, it's a knas because of her behavior. Bas Kohen na Truma. If she was from a Kohen family, she can never have Truma again. Ve'en Yoshin Shalzeh, Ve'yoshin Shalzeh, Yoshin Ksuvasa. The children of either Reuven or Shimon cannot get a collector ksuba. Now, the obvious question is, she has no ksuba. And the Gemara in Yivamis talks about this halacha that is referring to a very specific aspect of ksuba. Yivamis Daf Tzadik Aleph, a whole sugi there. V'imeisu. Now, if any of these so-called husbands, Reuven, her real husband, because remember, it wasn't a real get, she wasn't really divorced, and Shimon, this proposed husband, if any of them pass away without kids, which would typically trigger a yivam process, so here we can't do that. The brother of either Reuven or Shimon, if there's a yivam situation, they do chalitza and not yivam. The Mishnah now will proceed with, some more examples of this mess up, which causes this grave consequence. Shina shma yushma, another improperly written get. He erred. He made a mistake in terms of his name or her name. Shem Iroi v'Shem Iroi. He switched the names of his or her cities. Right? So instead of writing her correct name and her correct city, he messed it up. Teitzim izem zeh. So once again, if she remarries based on this get, she leaves both husbands. We apply all these penalties, all these ramifications apply to this case as well, and then the next case as well. So this is a yibum discussion. We know that husband passes away without kids, his wife is now a yivama slated for yibum. So Reuben passed on, Shimon the brother takes over. Suppose this Yivama, this wife of Reuven, is an erva to Shimon. She is Shimon's daughter, Shimon's sister. So we don't apply Yibum at all. She's exempt from Yibum. What happens if Reuben, who passed away, had two wives? Rachel and Leah. Rachel is actually an erva to his brother Shimon, so she's not really eligible for Yibum. She's not a Yibum candidate. But Leah is a total stranger to Shimon. Technically, Shimon can marry her. No, a tsaras erva, a co-wife of an erva, is also exempt from Yibum, provided that she was really a wife. But let's say Rachel, who is this erva, this let's say the sister of Shimon, who had been married to Reuven, turned out to be a non-wife. She was an ailonis. An ailonis is an isha who has a severe hormonal imbalance, in which case, unless the husband knows about it, it's considered a mekachtos, a mistaken acquisition. In which case, technically, she's not even married to Reuven. So what happens if kol arayas sham, all types of noshim who are arayas, in our case it would be Rachel, who was married to Reuven, who passed away without kids, is now a Yivama, but she's an erva to Shimon, a sister, a daughter. So what happens? Just like she's exempt, but her co-wife is exempt as well. The Sarah, the co-wife, is exempt as well. So Leah figures, okay, Rachel is an erva, I'm potter, and she goes and marries out. And she goes and marries out. It turns out it's been discovered that Rachel was an islandess. She was never married to Reuven. So technically, Rachel was not part of the equation. Leah was not a co-wife of an erva. She's a regular Yavama who should do Yibum with Shimon. She didn't. She married a stranger, thinking that she was exempt from Yibum. She should have had more patience. She should have figured out what's going on with Rachel. She must leave both husbands, which basically means, let's say she married Levi, she has to leave Levi and she can't marry the Yavam as well, Shimon. We apply all these halachas we mentioned before. Another example, a Yibum related mess up. Let's go back to our case. We have Reuven, who passed away without kids, left behind Rachel and Leah. In this case, we have no erva on the scene. Rachel and Leah both perfect candidates for Yibum to Shimon. But we know that you only do Yibum on one, and then the other one is automatically sort of addressed and exempted, and she can leave the scene. So Shimon married, let's say, Rachel, chose Rachel over Leah. This is Lacher, and Leah, the co-wife, went and married a stranger, thinking that she was done with Yibum. It turns out Rachel was an islandess, in which case she was never ever married to Reuven, in which case there was only one wife around, Leah, who needed Yibum, which she didn't do. The same consequence, the same ramification. Another example, Kosav Sefer Get Liish, V'Shever Liisha. So typically the scribe sits down and he writes a get to give it to the man, and a shaver, a receipt, to prove that the man paid up, his ksuba, payments. He gives that to the isha, pending the husband's payment, right? So basically going to make a switch. He's going to give her the get, and she's going to give him the shaver. Rita. And he made a grave error, the sefer. V'nosan get liisha, v'shever liish. When he finished writing both documents, he rolled them up, and unknown to him, he gave the get to the isha and the shaver to the ish, and they switched things. V'nosan zelzen, they exchanged documents. So now, husband got the get, and wife got the shaver. She's not really divorced. Ulachar zman, and a while later, we discover our mistake. Hurry, get yetzim yada ish. Suddenly we find the get in possession of the husband, v'shever miyad isha, and the receipt by the wife. She was never divorced. The same idea. We apply all these penalties. They should have checked. They should have ascertained the content of their respective documents before proceeding with life. Or 1 second. It depends how quickly they discover this so-called mistake. Imla alter. If they found it right away, so then we assume it was true. The mistake was made, and Yetze, she has to leave her new husband. Sorry. Imla alter yotza. If it was discovered right away, ein zaget, we cancel the get. We assume that she never got the get because he's holding the get. But if time goes by and it's only a while later that we discover this so-called mistake, if the get was discovered in the husband's hands, a week later, we treat it as a get and we assume they're just pretending. Perhaps he had a change of heart, so now they're pretending that it was never done properly. It's not up to the first husband to ruin Shimon, the new husband's life. So we assume it was given properly, and we just ignore this preposterous claim. Okay, so again, let's briefly recap. We have the halacha of delivering the get into the chutzah of the isha. Even the aver of the chutzah works, provided it's a protected area within mechitzos. We discussed various cases involving her rooftop in his courtyard, his rooftop, her courtyard. We learned that by get it's all about guarding and possession, and even the aver works, whereas by Shabbos you need more concrete landing of that item onto the actual surface of the property. We had some chilukim differences between Shabbos and get, and the underlying difference is pretty much the same idea, that by get it's all about guarding, and it's about mindset. It's not about technicalities of domains, which is more a Shabbos related concept. Abaye's case of the double chatzeres, the double kupos, machlekes b'sham Beisil by get yashan. Even Beisil agreed that it's b'diavad it works. And we had many cases in the Mishnah where something went ari with the get, or in the case of the yibum there was a mistake, in which case we come down very hard to encourage them to be more conscientious, more careful and responsible, certainly when it comes to marriage related procedures. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.